Anyway, her kids were there. So, and my daughter went to high school. So that's family. I just talked to someone here because it's long, and I'm going to be running back and forth. Okay. Unless you want to stick with that for the whole time. But, or I'm saying unless you want to stick with my It's all set up.
On the speaker.
It's working.
Yeah, like, we can't hear you. We have to use a cell phone. You're first, right? After, not make this an introduction. Yeah, after that introduction. Okay.
You took care of other stuff. I know.
Oh, my keys, yeah. There's your stuff. Oh, you don't want to do They got a big boot, rammed into a little ankle. Yeah.
It's going to kind of be, I have to get tag team because I'm also facilitating. So, yeah. So someone else will be jumping out without saying,
I think this is the way.
Oh, she just left.
All right, she found it. Look at you.
Yep. That's why I was like, I don't have to take that anymore. I can get up and do it myself. All right, we're going to get started. We got a lot to talk about. Folks will come in as they do. Some may have forgotten that we are a floor up from our normal floor. I did. I saw a dark hallway. I was like, I got to come up one. So, welcome to everybody. I wanted to make one quick announcement at the beginning. We, at our next meeting, July. We have one more. It's May 14th. Not only are we going to have the report for review, but we will have elections for executive board members. And I do want to announce right now we will have 2 definite vacancies. One is Jackie Johnson, who's retiring. She's not in the room right now, but we found that out in our last meeting, so appreciate her service and wish her well, and she'll be here at a future meeting. But the other is our vice chair is leaving the area, so she will also, Erin, will also be stepping off from the executive board. So if you have questions, if you're interested in serving, you can shoot an email to either the TPAC or to mine, which is boisseau@gmail, and I can, answer it any way you need. Her going to Denver hopefully is not representative of how fun it is to work with me, but you know,
not at all.
Keep moving on. So it's really going to be a learning session tonight, mainly by our county public schools system professionals. So I'm going to step out until 8:10 to talk about the report and an issue that came up regarding the PTA funding, one that will need specific feedback from you all on. So, Lisa, is there any else? Sorry.
It'll be me, and I'll apologize in advance. I'm going to be kind of jumping into the building and also moving things around in the virtual session. So if I'm like kind of jumping around all evening, I apologize. So our main outcomes today are to look at both the family, the district level and school-based family engagement policies. The district policy will be approving for next year. I'll have a little information on that, and then we'll also be looking at your school family engagement policy, particularly leading up to your school's revision of that policy later this school year. During that time, you'll see some charts on the board up around the room. We'll also be kind of charting some big ideas that we're noticing. That'll help us as a division look for trends, and as a TPAC, look for ideas that might surface to serve the reports that goes to the school board and the recommendations that go to the school board at the end of this year. So with that, I'm just trying to talk to someone nearby. What current opportunities are there within your school to engage families? So what are you seeing now?
So currently we have
We're going to come back together in about 1 minute. All right, let's come back together. So I'm glad that there is strong discussion around this. It means that you had a lot to talk about replacing that are currently in place at your school. Before we do move on, I do want to just take a moment to thank, we do have some principals in attendance. So we have Chris Smith from Daniels Run, and then we also have Katie Richmond from Woodburn attending virtually. So we're always happy to see our school leaders in attendance to really forge that strong partnership between TPAC reps and school leaders. Before we get started into content, Renee is just going to touch a little bit on the family engagement survey that is currently open. So I'm going to let Renee share just a little bit.
Okay. I'm sure you've received several other reminders over and over again about our family engagement survey. It closes on Friday, and we're asking you to be some of our ambassadors by going back to your school and within your network, asking them to provide their feedback. There's a bit.ly link in which is bit.ly FCPS 2019 Family Engagement Survey, and currently, I just checked, we have 24,295 responses. I want to see much more of that. We have a threshold that we need to meet, and that's 25,000. But 25,000 in a voice of Fairfax County this large, that's not a lot of voices. But we need to get as many more responses as we possibly can. And also, this family engagement survey is going to go as a VDOE component of the Title I grant. So we especially need our Title I families to respond to this survey.
What does that mean, VDOE?
Virginia Department of Education.
Okay. If our families can see this, it helps to be able to, that information helps us.
We're going to use that information for
ESSA requirements. Each school division is required for Title I schools to implement a family engagement survey. And so since FCPS is implementing this division-wide, we're able to use those results to fulfill this requirement. But that's why it's really critical that we get a high return rate in our Title I schools so that we can justify using the school division survey for our Title I requirements.
You know how many total response, the maximum amount of responses that everybody fills out that we have?
I think it's like 190-something thousand. Yeah, because we used our student information system, and anyone that had a relationship with a child, they got the response. And you can respond if you have multiple children. Respond for each school.
All right. So We just referenced one ESSA requirement in the Family Engagement Survey, but you're familiar with this slide around some of the other components that are required by law when it comes to the Title I grant. We're really going to be honing into that bottom bullet, particularly that written district parent and family engagement policy, so what it looks across the school division. And then just keeping this in mind, our role as a TPAC committee, that those ESSA requirements, the way that we are implementing that within Fairfax County is to really give school parent leaders a voice all the way to the school board, which is huge. That doesn't happen across the nation. So just kind of always remembering to keep in that one. This shouldn't take too long. We did send out the policy in our email reminder with the agenda. It is somewhat of a lengthy document, which is why we asked you to take a look at it ahead of time. We do have some copies out for reference out at the tables, some drafts, and once it is approved, what will happen, and the reason that we're approving it now, is that schools will be putting this in their welcome packet or their student handbook. It'll also be available online because it must be provided to parents in multiple means. That's a requirement by the DOE. So, and then you can see the link down at the bottom is where you can find the current policy. We're not advising any changes at this point. It's been revised over the past few years, but currently, the work it describes is very much the work of this group and what's happening in Fairfax County. So we're asking that you, as the TPAC committee, approve it. And before I ask for a show of hands, are there questions that I might be able to answer before? Once you give proper wait time, with a show of hands, who approves the district policy as written? All right, it's approved. Thank you. All right, so now that we've got some of the business out of the way, we want to really spend the rest of our time together really thinking about family engagement. We really want to think about what that looks like at the school level. So Renee is going to provide us with some really critical information about what we think about when we think about family engagement, what's high leverage, what should we be seeing, and then after we've been grounded in that, we'll take a look at our school family engagement policies and see what we uncover as it relates to that information that we've just learned.
Okay, so I'm Renee. I'm the coordinator of Family and School Partnership. And I'm going to talk to you briefly about what is family engagement and what it means to have high-impact family engagement strategies.
Can you just use the scrolling thing?
So when we look at the definition of family engagement, we think about all caring adults, whether it's someone's parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle, or sibling, at home, at school, and in the community. Effectively support learning and healthy development. Notice that it's bold when we say supporting learning and healthy development, because family engagement, that is what it's all about. It's about supporting learning and academic success for our students, as well as healthy development. So looking at how our students are growing mentally and physically. When we talk about family engagement, there are 4 core beliefs, and these 4 core beliefs come from a book called Beyond the Bake Sale. And this book was written by Dr. Karen Mapp and Dr. Joyce Henderson, and they're both 2 family engagement gurus. Dr. Mapp is at Harvard, and Dr. Henderson is at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. And when we think about these core beliefs, we believe that all families have hopes and dreams for their children and want what's best for them. There's not a family member that doesn't want what's best for their child. When children are born, we have aspirations for our children, and these are things that we think about the core beliefs when we talk about family engagement. All families also have the capacity to support their child's learning at home. Capacity, we all have the capacity. We often say families or a parent is a child's first teacher, Well, that is true. And all families have the capacity. And it doesn't mean that they have the resources or the tools. They may not be able to teach their child high academic algebra, but they have the capacity to find the support or the network to support their child. Family and school staff are equal partners. Yes, the core beliefs are to have a partnership, you have to be equal partners. Now, this can be cultural because in some cultures, the school is the known and the all-being in terms of education. They trust us, they send their children to our schools, and they're not going to come into our buildings. They're going to trust that we have the best interest for their child. When we say equal, it may not be 50-50, it may be 80-20, it may be 40-60. But when we talk about equal, it means we both have a role to play in the development of the student. And number 4, the responsibility for cultivating and sustaining partnerships among school, home, and the community rests primarily within the school staff, especially school leaders. Because we know our school leaders set the culture for our school building. So when we talk about family engagement, these are 4 core beliefs that we believe are essential to have in our schools. Family engagement is a learning support. And when we were at our executive board meeting last month, we were talking about it, and Mike was like, we really need to bring this to the TPAC so that we can have an understanding of what family engagement is and what it is not. So I wanted to break down the shift from family involvement to family engagement. Family involvement is something that we said over 10 years ago. We have shifted to family engagement, and we don't say parent engagement, we say family because family is much more inclusive. So when we look at from individual partners, a parent or teacher's jobs, that's family involvement. When you think about it's the teacher's job or the parent's job. We've now shifted to it's a shared responsibility between home and school. When you look at involvement, and involvement is in the orange. Random act. I like to call that's that drive-by family involvement. You're having things happen and you're counting heads and say, oh, wow, that was successful. That is random act of family engagement. We want to move to a systemic approach from cradle to career. We have to be very intentional around our family engagement. From event to results driven. Family engagement is not an event. It has to be focused on continuous school improvement with the outcome of student success and growth in our achievement. From add-on services to more purposeful connections to learning. What we do should be connected to learning. It's not just something else we do. It should be embedded in everything that we do within our schools and our community. And moving from compliance to focus on learning, improvement, accountability, and innovation. So on the left are when we would say involvement. We want to shift to to engagement, family engagement. So once again, family engagement is a process and not an event. So when we think about family engagement, we want to make sure that we are welcoming and honoring our families. We're meeting them where they are, and honoring them is by meeting them where they are. And whatever we do within our schools is connected to learning, okay, and healthy development. When I say learning, that also means healthy development. So remember, family engagement is a process, not an event. And I want to share with you this chart that shows low impact strategies compared to higher impact strategies. We want to move our schools into the green area of high impact. And we're going to talk a little bit later. There was some discussions about fundraisers. Look at the impact of fundraisers. So we have to move away from that low impact stuff that we've done because we've always done it and we've been doing it for 20 years. We're going to keep doing it to make sure that we're modeling strategies for our families to support learning. Parent help on learning projects. Positive phone calls home. It has a higher impact. Regular personalized communication. It's important that we communicate with our families often and frequently. I wanted to show parent room. Oh, parent resource rooms. Look at that. It's low impact. It's not the room. It's what's happening in that room that makes it high impact.
Sorry, what do you mean by classroom observations?
Families visiting the classroom.
During school.
Mm-hmm. So that they can connect to the learning that's occurring in the classroom. And I think that's it. Any questions?
Sure, something. I'm going to have a question on. All right.
I'm almost fast. I wanted to make sure that I stay on task with our time.
I see those things, and a lot of them seem to be a regular building block where you can get to the higher impact. I find it how would we, in the outset, obviously we can make phone calls if we have the information, but some of those higher impact strategies aren't usually going to come just from showing up day one, meeting procedures in the year preceding. So how would we get there faster?
Goal setting calls. Having those conversations with your child's teacher about what are your goals and aspirations for your child and what marks and progressions that they need to see. Having those goal settings, that's high impact right off the bat.
And when would those happen?
They would start at the beginning of the year and throughout the year. Come back and circle back around with your child's teacher about how, let's talk about where we began and where are we now. How are we reaching those goals?
I have a daughter in kindergarten, one in second grade. We had goal setting talks in the first 2 weeks of school.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get to know about who my child was based on what I had to tell them about them, versus them just trying to figure out all these new children in their class. So it's really helpful.
And some schools are moving towards student-led conferences. That's high impact.
Finding the HD or role that Alexandria City Schools was having the parents liaison make these connections because it's a language, so they have a hard senses on speaking Spanish. And so when those people get involved, the parents know this is a resource for us, and they invite them to events and, connect with them. And most of them have been there 20, 30 years, so they really are, they know the needs of the family. And they can see that's the role the parents use on and play, especially English is one of the languages.
And I would agree, parent liaisons have a role, and they especially have a role around connecting families to learning and parent programming. Not so much in the service orientation, always giving service to our families, but building their capacity.
Is the desire for everything on the left to go away or to not be as prominent?
Not to be as prominent and focused on it. You need to the higher impact. You're going to get your bang for your buck when you look at higher impact. I mean, you look at celebrations. You need to have celebrations because we're building the networks of our family. But what do we do differently at those celebrations to make it higher impact? Remember that slide about innovation, moving towards more of the innovation.
I see that as a community building side. A lot of those activities, because they may or may not include a lot of school participation or administration participation. There's a lot, as they are, a lot of them are usually parent-driven or other volunteers. So I think building
these are not parent-driven.
Well,
These are collaborations. These are high impact strategies that are being shown from the U.S. Department of Education. So some of that can be parent-driven, but this is in collaboration, because remember, it's a shared responsibility between home, the community, and the school. It's not just the school, it's not just the home, it's all three.
Are you talking about the left?
I'm just saying the left side
Talking about
right
the-
now.
not the green.
Not the green.
Yeah, the first row, celebrations, fundraisers, another thing is those are also mainly evening events that parents can participate in. A lot of the other stuff are great, like the classroom observations, but it's tough to get time off work or to do that. And the other thing I see too, the left side on the end, fundraisers and potlucks are really two of the only points there that you can get money for the extra activities, like a field trip or something else that the school can afford. There's not much of that over on the right side. So when you say higher and more impact, is it just about family engagement, or is it?
It's about family engagement. These are high-impact family engagement strategies.
From looking at everything there on the right and knowing even in our Title I school, the number of students in each class and how difficult some of these strategies can be to implement from a teacher's perspective for every single student in their class. Is there any type of strategy suggested from a parent or a home perspective as to how to develop this with your teacher, that you only have 1, 2, maybe 3 children in school that you're trying to get more involved and more engaged with the school and the learning? Teachers looking at 25 in non-Title I more than that.
We both have a responsibility. So you can reach out, they can reach out. I can't say because a teacher has 25 children in their class that they should not be communicating with their families, talking about learning goals and outcomes. That's the whole purpose. Those conversations should be occurring. As a former school administrator and a teacher, I mean, I get it and I understand. It may be 2 students this week, 3 next week, and you just go on through your roster and your role. But it can be done. In high effective schools that have seen continuous school improvement, these have been done. Because these are all research-based.
One thing she's asking her, I was hearing from is, are there any strategies in place that can be passed around that have worked in some schools like an SAP?
Yeah, these are things that, those goal conferences. Yeah. That's a high impact that you can start on right off the bat. Initiating those conversations with your teacher, giving them feedback about the goals and aspirations, instead of waiting for them to tell you. Kind of have your stuff scripted out. These are the questions I'm going to ask, and this is what I'm going to share. To be a little bit more proactive so that you're not on the spot trying to think and kind of prepare for those conversations.
So how is this getting delivered? How is it being shared with schools, and how are the survey, 190,000 parents in schools getting this message? Is there, you can't clone yourself, so you can't be everywhere to explain this, but it's never broken down in this detail where we have this event, the purpose of this is this, we've seen to show like some behavioral results from before.
We're working on that. We're working on shifting the culture and care back. So we're providing professional development to our administrators as well as to our teachers to get to this point. We're just starting in the beginning. We have a lot of work to do.
Well, I know, I'm sure that kind of initiated this a little bit because she had like 2 parent copies this past week, and one of the things that she focused on was communication, and she wanted to know how, to improve, especially at the classroom level. Because this is a complaint that a lot of parents had was, we have no idea what's happening in the classroom, the teacher is not getting enough updated on the curriculum, if we know ahead of time what our students are going to be learning a month ahead in advance, or even for the following year, we could be working on those activities with our kids at home. So that was one of the things that she actually created this kind of reached out to the parents through these parent copies, which I thought was a great way of, getting the parents engaged and getting their opinion on how to improve communication levels.
So we're going to take the survey and look at the outcomes and try to make determinations of how we move forward. And that's why we need feedback. We need as many people as we possibly can get to answer those questions on the survey.
I was just going to say, I mean, we have to be the advocate for our kids as parents, and through this group, we can go ahead and start doing this and show other parents within our schools that you can do this. Like, I have, my son's got an IAP, and so I've kind of gone through this whole process of, advocating for him with his emotional disability. So, I've gone into the classroom. Like, when I go to the first day, we get all the information. I have certain questions that I ask the teacher, like the best way to get in touch with you. Can I do this? Can I do this? And it's just, a quick 4 or 5 questions when I have my time with that teacher. The weekly data sharing, most schools have a folder that they're sending home on a Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it is. And Lynbrook actually did do home visits. They implemented that last year. At first I was like a little off, but I'm like, dang, I gotta clean my house. But it was nice having them come there. And then part of the conversation was me and the teacher, and then brought the student in as well. And so it was part, talking to them and asking them. So I think schools are trying to implement these things. I think what everybody was kind of saying is, like, how can we get all of Fairfax County schools on the same page? And like you said, we're going to, you're trying to do it little by little. It's just the beginning steps. But I think if we all start doing some of these things, and then the teachers realize that we're doing it, that, they'll get more parents doing it as well.
And you made a really statement. You are your child. You should be advocating for your children.
Strongly.
Yes. Be your child's voice. And as they grow older, your advocacy will change it will switch by the time you get into secondary. You'll be showing them how to advocate for themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, thanks, Renee, for really.
Can I ask one more?
Oh, please.
How can we, where we're at now, help promote this? I know you said it's in development, so maybe there's not a lot we can do besides say it's coming, but how can we?
Well, it'll be in our report. I'm going to help us get it into our recommendations in our report.
Okay.
And I think that what we're about to embark on next is another really great opportunity. So each school has their school-level family engagement policy, and that outlines how they engage with families, how they build the capacity of families to effectively engage in different ways with their child as a patient. And so your school's policy will be revised in the next few months. We're asking principals to revise it in collaboration with families by June 1st, so that, again, it can be put into that school handbook or welcome packet, however schools initially communicate with families at the beginning of the year. As a TPAC representative, you're a leader in your child's school. We encourage you to be a part of that conversation. And that's where you can bring in some of these ideas, some of these things that you're hearing, and think about how you can collaborate to get some of these things off the ground. So in order to really give you that chance to examine the current family engagement policy, we're going to take you through a structure to allow for that. So just a little bit of background before we do that. So again, this is a requirement under ESSA that each school must have a Title I family engagement policy and compact, and that schools must engage parents and staff in reviewing that. So something that we're looking to do to really strengthen that, like I said, is to have that happen in the spring to really allow for that collaborative conversation, not to be something rushed that has to hurry and happen in the fall, and then the policy doesn't necessarily get out at the beginning of the year. So we're shifting our timeline so that we can broaden those opportunities for conversation. So one thing that I do want to highlight is that I think each of you has your school's family engagement policy in front of you. As you look around, you're going to notice some similarities, and that's because we do provide a template. And we provide that template to schools because we ensure that that meets all the requirements that BDOE asks be included. There's a lot of mandatory requirements that must be included, and so we've had the template reviewed by BDOE to ensure compliance, and then we ask that schools personalize it, and so that's why as you're looking through, you're going to see, look around, you're going to see some common things, like kind of the way that the information is chunked into different categories, the language at the front. So that's why you'll notice some similarities, and we do encourage schools to personalize it based on what's going on in their current state.
Did you say June 1st?
June 1st. Okay. Yes. So schools are due to have revised it by June 1st.
It's possible to get the ones from the other schools as well, so we can just compare them.
So I will say each school's policy, one of the requirements is that it be posted online on their website. So we have some extras if you want to look for and grab some other schools that aren't, here today to kind of see and compare. You're more than welcome to. And each school, a requirement is also that each school policy be online as one mean of communication for families. So that also, for those who are attending virtually, that's a way that you can look at your policies this evening, is that it should be on your school's website. And who would show of hands has been on your school's website into the Title I section? Specifically, so there's a Title I district kind of page, then also your school has a sub-page on their school page, specifically related to Title I requirements. Okay, so what's on it right now? So some things that are required to be on there are the school parent-family engagement policy, the school's school-wide plan. Each school, Title I school, is required to have a school-wide plan that they do in combination with their SIP, with their school improvement plan. And then schools also have a link to BDOE's school quality profile. So BDOE posts a lot of information about test scores and demographics on their website, and that is required to be on the school. A link to that direct school page is required to be on there as well. So if you're ever on there, it's a great place to reference information. If you're not, if you can't put your finger on the policy itself, it does tend to home. Before we start looking at some guiding questions to help us think about our school policy, what questions that you have about the information that I've shared so far? Well, we'll carve some time at the end for some questions as well once you've had a little bit of time to look and talk with others. I'm going to just give you kind of 2 minutes to look at yours now. I'm going to put the guiding questions up so that you can use them as kind of your think about as you're looking through, and then we're going to break into groups and circle around and chart our ideas. That'll be really important information for the TPAC Executive Board as school board recommendations start to be crafted. And there's markers by the charts. So take a minute or two to look through it, and then I'll prompt you of how we're going to break into groups.
So, is this something we should, when we're going back and talking to our principals, talk to them about specifically about these questions and
You can look at their starting questions. They have some things of their own that they want to know how to get thought process around, and we also use a new time as well where going to be providing questions. You can use similar threads and anything additional.
So are they aware of this already, though, that that's
So
a new time?
the information we're sharing we're using the office getting answers all communication.
Okay, so they might not be aware yet that they're changing. Yeah.
I'm his,
Oh, are you? Okay. Okay. Not really. Wondering. Yes.
All right, so let's go ahead and get in groups. We're going to use a strategy that's called a carousel. It's a strategy that within SPPS, when we're doing PD, we might use a lot to get everybody's ideas out. So there's a few directions that I'll give you in a moment. We'll just count off and get in groups. And then Lisa mentioned there's a marker next to each poster. Your group can take that marker with you as you go. That'll help us to see like the group's ideas get added on to each poster. If you start here, you jot your ideas down, and then when you get to the next poster, and when I'll prompt you to switch, when you get to that next poster, the ideas that are already on there, you're like, yes, totally, I 100% agree. You can put a check mark on there. You don't have to write them again, and then you can add on whatever ideas you might have beyond that. All right, I'm going to probably give you 3 to 4 minutes for each poster. Afterwards, we'll come back and we'll have a time for any questions that have come to mind now that you'll have talked to other reps, maybe heard about what's going on at some other schools. Okay? All right, so let's see, and I'm going to group these by school. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. So we're going to do 3 schools. Yes, I counted. We're going to do 3 schools at each poster. So I was going to count you guys off, but I'm going to just send you 3 schools a poster. So there's one here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll prompt you when it's time for your group to switch. One, two here. One, two, three in the middle. One more score represented here at our poster. All right. Like weekly reading, right?
Yeah, we did it.
We did it every Friday. We did one here about and they all now we're on a I need to feel like kind of like education, like what they're learning. I mean, not really that you know, as they were teaching, and it primary years, but they were in fourth grade, so I talked about those years. All right, let's go ahead and switch. I know, maybe not. Let's go ahead and switch in about 30 seconds. There's no one rate, we're charging on or everything is like it's very, you know, right. You know what else they did? They had math.
Out of feedback. Yes, yes.
Yeah. I sometimes will help.
What are those? You know the first time we so you wasn't working on or you helped them?
Those are ways that you can grab people in and just go from state and beyond and jump into more business. I feel like you have to kind of, yeah, it has to be completely hard before you go to that. I know we were talking about that this morning, you know, and Ashley was like, no way, I don't want to do like, I don't want to know, you know, that. It was just like, you know, I yeah. Like if our family is coming in next year, and showing us that's kind of what it is. I think maybe you have a relationship on that, but I'm sure that But I think it's also like that. I want to know that their future is not always really bad. Holiday needs.
All right, about 30 seconds, and then we're going
Fourth grader and then second grader. Oh, okay. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead
All right. Bullet number 1. Yeah, this is 2, 3, and 4. This is 1.
What way?
Oh, yeah, no, this is the most. Yeah, it used to be like. All right, let's go ahead and get all right.
Well, we had to go through papers. Trying to see if we know.
All right, let's go ahead and finish our last sentence. At this point, you've seen all four posters. So go ahead and, as you head back to your seat, just take a kind of quick look around there, and I'll grab the marker.
We do our 5 days ago. Oh, sorry. No.
So I see a lot of charting, a lot of ideas. You'll also see that we went around, Renee and I, and added yellow sticky notes to each chart. Those are the ideas from the virtual session. They were having a very robust conversation and share out online as well. So before we move on, what questions might you have now? What are you kind of resonating on after talking with others and having a chance to see what others are thinking and what's happening across other schools?
There's a lot of great ideas out there.
So there's a lot of great ideas out there, and so I think a big part of it is how do we help schools leverage each other's ideas, right? The common idea that we're hearing across.
I know. It would have been nice to do this, I think, at the beginning of when we gathered and formed, because it's almost like you're doing this exchange and getting to know each other and getting to hear other ideas and thinking about kind of these key buckets of areas that are important for school engagement.
So
I really enjoyed it.
So really fostering a community amongst each other as well.
I see these right now structured where school is presenting. I don't see as much consultation or meaningful feedback application from parents for any of these things. And maybe it's because they're developmental stages and they may have to figure out how to capture that or how to implement that. But I know there is a survey at the end of partisan print life, and I agree with that. But I don't see such as feedback from families on programs in the Title I school plan, offer opportunities for parents to comments on programs they may not find satisfactory, and submitting to the comments with the title and school plan of the extra officers, that's never explained to us by school in a specific manner, even if they hand the students. You know what I mean?
So there's some opportunity to strengthen gathering input from families. And one way that we are embarking on that is by having you all, in collaboration with your schools, revise this policy in June to further strengthen that input. So we've, that opportunity, we acknowledge, and this is a starting point, for that, and, definitely opportunities to grow within that.
One thing, I mean, maybe there is this, we just moved into the area this year, and I've been away from Fairfax County for 20 years, so everything was new and very new world about it. These things might exist, but one thing we really liked about coming to TPAC was meeting everybody, getting the other ideas, and that's one of the things our principal wanted us to bring back. But it's only once a month, and it's quick, and we got some great ideas here, but then to formulate it and know, oh wait, how can we contact, find out more about this? It would be really nice if there was a TPAC forum or something that we could all log on to when we first sign up, when we first got here. And so then each night it could have, or each month we have like this, with this, and then you can write in, okay, so my school does this for family engagement. We do a movie night, that's about this, this. So then we can see, oh, okay, yeah, they are doing that, and kind of what it is, how it's implemented, how it's effective, in a way that then also can be content. Hey, please tell us more about that, So it's not just like learn and then leave.
Yeah, so some ways to continue the learning and conversation between the months, and to allow for the network to really continue to grow.
Right, and in a forum or a singular area that we can all log into and off on, but just the people from here, so a troll-free.
a troll-free TPAC forum.
But that was one of the ideas behind the creation of the email address, email account, even a Twitter account. So you can engage and share those ideas. And not a form necessarily for logging in, but at least it is a capture of information that it can be filtered back out. It can be.
The nice thing about the form is that it'll stay there posted. As an email, I'm going to lose it in my of emails I get. Even if I make an email account just for this, I'll probably forget to check it. But something, and then it would also be a place we could post all of the slides that are out. People can post. I take my notes each month and we give it to the principal. But it would be nice to more sharing outside of just tonight.
So some ways to leverage technology.
Yeah.
teams. And so sharing a win share through MS Microsoft.
Right.
Okay. What else? All right, so that concludes our review of the policy. We're going to take these charts back. We're going to use them to start to think about the annual report. We also have an exit ticket, and I know on the agenda that it says that we're going to talk a little bit more about the annual report and CPA funding issues first, but I think as it's all fresh in our minds, let's just switch right to the exit ticket. We're going to have you record the response to the exit ticket, and then we are actually going to collect them again to really serve as information for us and your input to give us some more information around recommendations, how to structure recommendations for the income report. So we'll do this. We'll collect it. Don't leave yet, and we'll hand it over to Mike to talk about the annual report and the PTA issue. Okay? All right.
So what exactly are we saying?
So we'll respond question on
Yeah, I have one. Communities, like the parents, the teachers, or the
So, anyone, you can start with me if you want to start with the principal, start there. There's also links that you want to go with that kind of teacher based on the communication. I'm just going to everybody can ask that too.
Will that presentation be available to us?
Absolutely. So we are recording the session. So we'll have the virtual session recorded on YouTube. That link will go out, and I believe Yvonne usually sends out the PowerPoint as well. So you'll have the actual slide deck. Okay. All right, we'll give you just about 20 seconds to finish up your talks, and then we'll collect those, and then Mike, the floor is yours.
The posters will be encapsulated.
The posters will be encapsulated, or I'm going to walk around and take pictures right now, and we'll send out the picture one way or the other. We'll make sure that it's
You're good. I'll take it.
So, one of the many outside, but discussions that kind of get brought up and inspired by activities over the year related to, well, heard it in different forms, both from members of the school board, specific concern that was brought to our executive board was the recommendation 3 from our recommendations last year. It is develop a grant writing guide, including a compilation of potential grant sources to increase capacity for PTAs to apply for and receive funding to enhance the programming at their respective schools. Now, the concern was shared from school board members that the PTAs are seeking money to help support schools. I guess they want to know what activities, what operations, or what programs at schools are not getting accomplished, or are not getting accomplished but for the PTA. And it's not something that Title I office necessarily could gather as well as we can as a respective school community. So one of the first pieces of specific feedback that we're looking for is if you can get a hold of your PTA budgets, it shouldn't be hard because it's supposed to be publicized, and see line items where it's specifically related to school operations that kind of doesn't really encapsulate what PTA funding, which you would imagine for it to pay for, because the concern is that there's an equity issue, so that's a high priority of the county. If PTAs are supplementing programs and activities in schools that other schools just have as a normal course of business, then it could be something to organize around more funding, more support given to them. But they need to know how widespread this trend is. I imagine it happens in a few schools.
What's the term again now?
PTAs helping pay for school programs and activities, and not just something like this, but regular operations type activities, whether it's staff training or professional development or I don't know, whatever else it could be. It could vary from school to school, but the best way to get a handle on it is to get your school budget, your PTA budget, see where it's going. And that's something that if you find a line item, you can either identify that or you can send the budget. Whatever it is, they need to get a sense of, how prevalent is it? Is it a few schools? It's a lot of schools. And if it is a lot of schools, then there's a serious equity issue that they want to take, more proactive measures to address. So does everyone understand what I'm looking for, that first piece?
So you want all the PTA budgets?
As many as anybody can get, yeah. All PTAs that you're connected to.
This isn't
Is this
help
gonna?
PTOs too, and
Yeah.
they don't have a budget, do they?
Yeah, they do. The only difference between PTA and PTO is that PTA has more of a governance structure within the county and state. PTOs are a little more independent.
So when you read that first,
His recommendation? It wasn't a concern that we even thought about. It was something that the school board.
So what, can you read that again?
It's on your agenda here. You picked one up.
There you go.
The recommendation, which one is it?
3.
Number 3. It was just the last part. Funding to enhance the programming at their respective schools. So the concern was if that
Maybe it just doesn't have to say PTAs. Why is it? Can we just take can we edit that? It
What do
doesn't
you
have
mean?
to be PTA.
Well, the recommendation is done. We don't need to change it. It wasn't the concern was that what are these schools missing that these PTAs are taking care of. It's not that I don't like this recommendation. It's I don't like the implications of what this recommendation means, that there's such a deficiency that the PTAs have to support. And I didn't understand it as well either, person. That talking with Karen, she's our liaison, school liaison. That was her concern, that schools are missing something, PTAs are supplying it. That's not something they should be supplying. It should be provided to the schools off the top.
Could you give some examples?
Yeah.
Virtual adapting.
Training of teachers or
Professional development, any type of,
sports equipment for the gym, basic stuff like that.
or paying a license for software. Helping for that where funds can be reallocated to something else.
I'm sorry.
No, how did that change? Sorry.
Not anything to ask a question. Just
I think once you collect these budgets, I mean, I've seen a lot of them, and you'll see that the Title I schools cannot provide through the TPA what the kids need in terms of, I would say, field trips first. And if there's ever kids who need to go on field trips, it's Title I kids who live in this incredible area where our middle class or upper kids go to these places all the time. So if they go on a field trip, it's not the first time they've been there. But I would say for the most part, when our kids, the Title I kids go, it is because maybe the only time they'll be at that museum or that, whatever that presentation is. So yes, the struggle for the Title I PTA budgets compared to the middle upper class budgets of those schools are phenomenal. I mean, there's such a difference. And I understand that there are a lot of funds go to Title I schools and that they are put to the staff. Amen to that, because we definitely need them in the classroom. But it doesn't seem right in Fairfax County that the kids can't get field trips. I mean, we had a lack of field trips for several classes last year, and so we do everything, booster fund, all kinds of, there's all kinds of rules about that now, then we try to do it on our own, and it's really, really hard to get the money out of the community. I don't know the solution, but grant writing was something we talked about in the first meeting, because we have done so many things. We have a very talented PTA and president and leadership, and grant writing is the next most significant thing we can do now, because we can't make up that difference. And I don't think that the Fairfax is just going to pile, $30,000 or $40,000 to each school for their field trips or whatever they need, like professional development. So it is not equitable. It's absolutely not. And I don't know what the solution is on all ears.
They need to hear it.
Yes.
I don't know what the solution is either, but they need to hear the problem.
They need to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not equitable. It's not fair to these kids. It's a big negative.
And that's the whole point of this. So I
is there
appreciate
another
that.
way to state that with the budget? Just giving them the budget, I don't know, is going to really explain, like she just
Oh, the report will be written,
explained.
and that stuff will be it's just to give them a data-driven sense of what's happening. Because anecdotally, we can say, school doesn't have so-and-so, but if they're able to see 30, 35 schools that are, and I know one in particular, that PTAs pay for the transportation field trips.
Yeah.
That's something that
It's
not about how it's supposed to be.
Clear.
It's not about how it's supposed to be,
Yeah.
but if they're not, who is? That's really the issue. If they don't do it,
So if next year they don't raise the money,
Right.
or the main heads of the PTA that are the main funders leave,
Should be coming out of a line item budget of the school. Is that what you're saying?
well, the school should get that, be getting that money.
like as an example, certain PTAs in certain schools, they want to add a climbing wall, whereas some just want to take a field trip. Not equitable at all. We're not even talking about a educationally, it's luxury. So that's what they want to get a better sense of.
So what are we sending it to?
You can send it to the TPAC email. It's TPAC@fcps.edu. It's a little easier to spell than my first name. So.
And principals only have so much discretionary funds. I mean, it's always tight. It's always tight. And they have to guard it. And it can't go to field trips. It's not enough.
We're losing some of our parent liaison, a lot of it because of the changes that happened in the budgeting, and a lot got slashed halfway through the year, and so what was supposed to be going, they just disappeared. And I know, hopefully in the next few years, the next election, things will change and we'll start growing again. But yeah.
So if you have, anecdotes to share with that as you provided, that's all they need. That type of information. So that's helpful. To that end, the other part of that concern came from, and I think us parent leaders talked about it at that last employee meeting. There's an expectation by a lot of schools that
here's PTA budget, we can use it. While support is always good, the expectation that it's to be had, I think that's problematic, and I think it blurs the line and causes a tension where the ability of the parent leaders to do their part to engage can sometimes be supplanted by the school's needs to either maintain operations or the priorities. And being that it may be a hard conversation for PTA board to have with their administrators. Not every, I've had a conversation too, but not everybody's comfortable having that conversation. So it's the type of message that is best delivered to the school board and then build back down to principals in a manner that they can, in line with what Renee talked about earlier. It's a whole paradigm shift in how we do things, how we do business.
I mean, what we did is as we did the budget, then we wrote out a policy on this is your budget for, each line item, for administrators, for teachers, for family learning, like we grouped it. Above and beyond this amount that you've been provided, you would need written authorization for additional funds. That's kind of how we handle it.
Mm-hmm. Some come in to, it's a culture where maybe the administrators come into where it's been like that, or the parent leaders come into where it's been like that, but they're asking, well, what can we do? You shouldn't be asking the school, how can they spend, the PTA money?
Right.
It should be, we have some ideas for some programs, and the school can say the extent it can be done, if it's logistically or there's other operational hurdles, but it shouldn't be, here's our checkbook, how can we spend it? And I think, and that's the thinking, is because it's been the operating procedure for too long. So that's something that's the other part of it that's going to be in the report, just having to change the thinking, and it needs to come from a higher level because, again, a lot of those conversations may be tense in some places and folks may not be comfortable or even realize the conversation needs to be had. Like some think, oh, we support kids through the school. Like, no, it's a different function. The school has different responsibilities and objectives to be met than parents, and a lot of folks don't necessarily understand that. The other part, specific feedback needed, is for the annual report. We've had, our first meeting was about really identifying what this group is, we're supposed to be doing, how we distinguish from PTA, that we have a direct line to the school board. Our second one was about advanced programming for all. The third one was about special education process, really through the parent perspective, how to empower folks with the knowledge and the tools as they need to advocate for their kids. The last one was homework helpers and grant involved, like 2 community resources and how you possibly one or both into your school community. And tonight was about the district policy and the parents compact. So I think when we asked you last, you can overload it, and I don't know if it was clear. So any key themes or concepts that you want to make sure are reflected in the report. Our next meeting on the 14th is going to be a review of the draft, and then it'll just be basically preparing your presentation. So if there's takeaways, like really big takeaways that came from any of those meetings that you think can result or we can build around a recommendation, that's the kind of information that we're looking for.
Sorry, recommendation for like
recommendations, yeah, because in the report is going to be new recommendations. It's going to be based on, and it doesn't have to come from our meetings, because some of our recommendations just come from the thoughts that are inspired by the meetings. A lot of them are in between the margins. Not like you said, the way to cap it, once you go and leave, I don't go and leave. There's so much stuff that comes in that I think, we need to talk about this, and it was never discussed in a meeting. It doesn't have to be. This is a space where the ideas kind of germinate that then we do, take to different places. So any suggestions for, certain themes that need to be captured in a recommendation, that we can.
For next year or for this?
For next year. For next year. And a potential charge, because essentially recommendation 5 is a charge that we recommend to the school board. We ask them to accept the charge, and they need the direction from us on where we're looking to go. So So these were the recommendations from last year for this year?
Yes. So 5 is what we've been kind of operating under. A lot of what we've presented has been in that vein. Not everything, but. And there were a lot of ideas that we kind of scrapped because we knew we weren't going to be able to get it all. As you see, even when we think we're ahead of time, the second we get into a topic, we all start talking and we run out of time. So we wanted to have the most quality of quantity, and so we trimmed down what the topics were that we explored. So there's things we have, ideas for next year, and that's something that we can even have, fleshed out that we can talk about next time too. But think about additional areas, whether there's some concepts that we did from this year we can go deeper on, or other areas that we could do next year, and that can kind of formulate what our charge will be.
Longer meters. Yes, because it does what you're saying. Sometimes it seems like you scratch the surface and it's going great, and then okay, next topic, and I want to get more about that.
Mm-hmm. It's an idea of consideration. I mean, whether it's longer or more, and I mean, we got lucky by not being snowed out anything or weathered out, because it could be wind or cold. But does everybody understand that part we're looking for as well?
And that's what we'll bring next meeting.
Next meeting, we're going to have a draft of the report.
Oh, so you want these?
When does it due? I keep saying this draft, so when does it actually do? Because the presentation, and everybody's welcome to attend that.
May 14th.
No.
So that's our general session, our last general session before.
What do you guys think?
When does the school board need to report?
Do you guys finalize?
It'll go through several versions of editing, so probably around the 20th or so, example for.
Of May.
Yeah, because they'll give it a full week for the presentation.
So when do you need our input by next meeting or at next meeting?
Before next meeting.
Before next meeting. We're trying to get that to you at the TPAC at FBS. Directed to wherever.
We just in the subject for 44 or 44, and then.
Is there any way you have I guess you can kind of a template, but a guide or I don't know. I guess I'm being lazy, but some type of just guide or template of the way you want us to present the information to you, so it's not just a long rambling email.
It doesn't matter. No. We're going to put it in something. Just send everything. Yeah, unless I have to create it, you can't.
We'll pull different things out of your ramble.
It'll be a true committee.
Yeah.
All right.
Work.
All right. Prepare.
Now, I'm not as worried about the next year charts. There's more themes for the report. Ideas for next year, that doesn't have that. We can talk about that even on the 14th, because that's something this charge for next year, and I think we, as a committee, should agree upon what the charge should be. But in terms of what's going into the report,
We think about this year.
right, making sure we hit certain parts, that's stuff that we sort of have before, by the 28th is a Sunday.
So the 29th is when we're slated to attend to present to the school board. So,
Mm-hmm.
You're talking.
But I'm saying I'm getting for that.
Oh,
Yeah, because executive board meets one more time, and we want to be able to kind of toss some stuff around. So the 26th is that Friday?
is that Friday? Mm-hmm.
Good. So that's our deadline. Mid-deadline.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is your deadline, the 26th. And we'll have that in the email following this meeting, that the specific deadlines of what we see. Once again, everybody, we can have as many people at the beginning. We have at least two. We also are going to have elections at the May 14th meeting, and we have at least two positions that are open because Jackie Johnson, who's one of our executive board members, retired, so she will no longer be on the committee. I doubt she wants to be retired. So, and Aaron Ockett is leaving the area, so We appreciate their service. And anybody who's interested and has questions, you can send that to the TPAC email as well, and serving on the executive board. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have used them.
The executive as well. And is it position secretary?
Yeah, an idea that there should be some information and, what we can do at this level so specific. And then
I want to do this. There's a lot of things that coming in too, right? Right?
Maybe not email that before. I've been working on here working on the report, but
we got it.
in a couple hours.
We got it.
I can't remember 5 minutes ago.
Somebody talk to us. I got that
That's yours. No, I think that's
but I don't